Good afternoon. A very warm welcome to all of you here at the Balie for this afternoon program. And I would like to welcome you also on behalf of the Balie. This is the opening event of Culture in Action, featuring the laureates of the Prince Claus Fund, the 2013 laureates of the Prince Claus Fund. In this series of events, which will take place today and also tomorrow, the laureates will present their work and they will debate their work, discuss their work with artists, intellectuals, experts here from the Netherlands. So it's a series of really daring, interesting encounters between our laureates, in this case, in this program, Carla Fernández. Carla Fernández is a cultural historian and a fashion designer. And with her mobile design studio, she travels throughout Mexico to document and preserve the rich textile heritage and age-old techniques of Mexico's indigenous communities. She then collaboratively turns these into striking contemporary designs. I'm really happy, Carla Fernández promotes environmentally responsible production processes and the economic development of the indigenous artisans and their communities by ensuring that her co-workers are recognized and paid for their intellectual property. Carla Fernández, as I said, is a laureate of the Prince Claus Fund, and throughout the year we receive nominations from all over the world. People are nominated for a Prince Claus Award, and we have an independent jury that meets twice a year. Experts from all the different disciplines are in the jury, represented in the jury, and they make a selection, and in the end there are 11 artists from the different disciplines that are honored with the Prince Claus Award. And I'd just like to read you very briefly, because the jury report is much longer, you can find it on our website, but briefly why the jury honored Carla Fernández with the Prince Claus Award. Carla Fernández is honored for creating stunning contemporary fashion by collaborating and adapting traditional techniques and styles, for empowering communities, especially women, by channeling their knowledge and skills into modern design, for reinvigorating Mexico's indigenous textile traditions and establishing a detailed archive as a lasting legacy for future generations, for devising an ethical production model that fully respects the intellectual property rights of indigenous individuals and communities, and for demonstrating the important cultural, social and economic role of textiles and design for our country and community. We're very happy that Carla is here today and that she's willing to present her work. I'd like to also mention here and welcome Marcella Echavarria. Unfortunately, Victoria, at the last moment, could not be here today because of some illness in the family. We feel very sorry about that, but we literally heard it 1 hour ago. And Marcella has agreed to be the moderator for this afternoon. Marcella is a person, a good friend of Carla. She's Colombian and she lives in New York. She knows Carla and her work very, very well. But not only that, Marcella is someone who makes design interventions working with artisans around the world, from Peru to Tibet. So we have a wonderful, wonderful replacement. I'm very happy, Marcella. Thank you so much for literally on the spot. I sent her a Facebook message and 1 second later I had a message back saying, sure, I'll come over. I'll just have to get dressed and I'll be there in half an hour. And here she is. So wonderful, Marcella. I'll hand you the microphone. Thank you.
Wow, who would have known? Thank you, Krista. Thank you, everybody. Actually, I met Carla in Peru, right? It was your first trip to Peru. And since then, we've been collaborating on different projects. I'm very proud to be here today. Very happy to share with you the program for this afternoon. We're going to see a film that was put together by the Prince Claus team and actually has a lot of information from Carla's Kickstarter campaign of her project in Chiapas. You can go online if you want to hear more about it. Then we're going to have an interview of Carla, which I will do. Then we're going to have Robaard talk about social fabric and Carla's work. Then they're going to have a discussion, and then Marieke Eyskoot is going to have. Sorry for the pronunciations. I'm working on my Dutch, believe me. It's going to have a panel discussion with Carla, and then we're going to have questions from the audience, and the program ends. So we have the film.
Taller Flora es un laboratorio móvil de diseño de moda que viaja por todo México visitando a grupos artesanales. Trabajamos principalmente con mujeres indígenas de toda la República que hacen textiles y labores a mano. Llevamos mucho tiempo estudiando el ADN de la indumentaria indígena. Utilizamos los métodos que les son familiares a los artesanos para llegar a los nuevos diseños.
I think what's really exceptional in her design is the way that she both respects and preserves a very, very particular textile technique, but then brings it into the modern world in very bold and contemporary design. She works in collaboration with indigenous craftswomen across communities in Mexico and ensures that they retain the intellectual property rights to their craft.
Nos interesa frenar la extinción de las artesanías mexicanas. Nos interesa también que las artesanas puedan vivir de su trabajo y que no tengan que emigrar a las ciudades en busca de mejores oportunidades.
She has created an archive, something that will be useful for future generations and not just a toolbox for her. And I think that's important because it shows a commitment beyond the immediacy that is often associated with the word fashion.
Okay, so now I invite Carla for a few questions and a little bit of a conversation about her work. So I think one of the most groundbreaking aspects of Carla's work is that she doesn't treat the artisan as a manufacturer, which is something that is very common and it happens a lot around the world. It's like, oh, you know, giving work is better than nothing. But she goes much beyond that, and it's going towards the concept of respect and heritage as something they own and should keep for their life. So I want to share with you a few questions with Carla. How did you fell in love with fashion?
I fell in love with fashion when I was 10 years old because I was very lucky, and my father, he's an anthropologist and museographer, so I used to go with him to the where the pyramids still are, where they have like these site museums, and there's where the indigenous communities still are. So since I was very young, I noticed that the best dressed in Mexico were the indigenous communities, and then I was born at the north. It's the border with Laredo, Texas, with Texas. So I used to go on shopping sprees to the States, and I was living in the middle of Mexico, in Mexico City. So I knew pretty much my country and how diverse it was. And I could tell that the best dressed and the best designs and color combinations were the ones that I saw in the communities, even if they were like communities on the north or in the south or in midtown, in the middle of the state. And then I knew that French designers like Galliano, I could sometimes went to the market and then suddenly I see John Galliano, like, no, and it's like, no, that's mine. Like, or then you see the combinations of Christian Lacroix, and they're the same amazing combinations that you see in Chiapas, for example, or Oaxaca. And I don't understand why in Mexico they say that we don't have a fashion, and I was like, well, you don't know that how you have your eyes wide closed, because we have beautiful fashion, but we're not just doing anything to take it to the cities or transform it and take it to the world.
So are you an anthropologist? Are you a historian? Are you a designer? Are you an activist? Or all of the above?
Well, I am someone that loves what I do, and fashion, it's a very difficult enterprise, and you have to be even more than that. You have to be entrepreneur, and then you have to have this commercial side, and then you have to be a designer. But I also know that if we don't work in the communities, we're not going to make a better Mexico. And because I could have decided to only be my inspiration, and then I could not work together with the communities, but I knew I would never have better partners, never.
So, you work in Mexico, you're Mexican.
Yes.
Are you exploring any other country?
I actually do, because we use something that I call the square root, that it's in Mexico, 95% of the traditional garments are made out of squares and rectangles, and then yes, it's like some of these is like the second one. It's like a keshkemit, it's a poncho, and then the skirt is also. Those skirts are also rectangles, and then we pleat and that jacket as well. So we play a lot with that, because the first time that I went to the communities, I knew. Well, I didn't know that because I was sent there to make more modern designs, like with cuts and like very tailored, and then I arrived there, and they didn't speak Spanish, and they measured with fingers and elbows, and they paint. It's like where you wanted to cut the fabric, they just take the soil, the ground, the soil, and then you just paint it in. So I throw away all my books, and I said, it's like, this is not working, and so I sat down for many years, and in order to teach, I had to learn a lot. So that's why we have been doing this research on the square roots. Well, that's a name that we named it. It's not the official name. And so we have to, and in order to that they can create, because it's very important what you say. I really think that when you work together with someone, it has to be a collaboration. It's not that, oh, please go and do that, because then.
Yeah, or I get inspired and I do it, and it's my credit.
Yes.
No, it's something that is done really with them. I'm very obsessed with the rebozo.
Yes.
I don't know if you guys know, but there are only 13 reboceros left.
Yes.
Reboceros, the
Yes.
word? Can you tell what a rebozo is?
The rebozos are the Mexican shawls that for sure you've seen that in Mexico they carry the babies with a shawl.
Everybody has a rebozo, right?
And everyone has a rebozo, but we have a crisis because it's a lot of work. One rebozo, it takes a month and a half to be done.
I think I have one in my bag.
Yeah, I have. Yes. Well, that is the fabric. This is a rebozo that we put some sleeves, but actually it's made by Icat. I don't know if you know Icat. Well, it's like they make these little knots. And then, so this is painted by hand, as it's all many knots, and then it's 2 kilometers of thread. It's like tie-dye, yes. And it's in Mexico, we don't know how the rebosos are made. We all have one, and we don't know how they're made, and that happens with everything, mainly all the crafts. I mean, it's very different from maybe France, that we have all these haute couture houses, and you see the videos of Louis Vuitton or Hermes, and they show the beautifully handmade things. And in Mexico, we just don't know. And I think that's why we don't pay what people are being working for. It's like, for example, the 2 first ones are hand-cut leather, that it's first drawn by hand, the design. And then, I'm sorry we couldn't see some videos, but it apparently didn't work out. And but then you turn it around, and then you stitch by hand with a sewing machine from 1900. Then with little scissors, the ones that you cut the baby, nails with, exactly those ones. Then you follow the thread, and then you cut it. So it's amazing. And then it's like, obviously this is the beginning of laser cut. Now everything is made by laser, and then you glue it on, but then it doesn't work, because then just doesn't stay, and it's not, it's not as beautiful as that, because it also makes the edges black and stinks, and no. So this is the original, and this is beautiful.
Made by men.
Yes, exactly.
Which
it's
is
handmade.
something also very relevant. Normally you think it would be made by women, but this is the charro culture, which is the mariachi dress.
Yes,
so that's.
And it's something fun, because the charros suits, they have a law that it's only for men. So when I started working with them, they were like, oh my God, but we're doing like women's clothing. I was like, yes, we have to do women's clothing, because that's the effect that we want, and we want women to be like charros and be tough and strong. And we're like, oh, but the charro law says that we shouldn't do it. It's like, don't worry, Señor Salvador, everything is going to be fine. And he's very happy, and we've been working like for 8 years.
So there you mix the charro and the keshkemil.
Yes.
Can you talk about that? Because it's two very different. Let's say one would be more Spanish,
yes,
and then the other one would be more indigenous. So she's not only bringing fashion into the modern Mexico and I would say global arena of fashion, but also mixing yet again.
I think when I work with a lot of women, especially women in the communities, and I know it's very hard to sustain 8 kids, do the food, clean the house, maintain the traditions, and then do something to live, because that's the way they work and live. And so what Marcella is saying for me was we should use what they wear, because it's beautiful, and the shapes they know how to do a keshkemit. It's very...
Can you tell them what a keshkemit is?
A keshkemit, it's a square that you just turn it, and it makes a rhomboid, and then you just put your head through one of the...
So let's say it's a Mexican poncho?
It's a Mexican poncho, yes. Well, we have it in many other different cultures, but that's a tradition. I mean, it's been there. You see 3,000 years ago figures, and they're using the same garment. So
it's all explained in your book.
Yes, it's all explained in my book, and if you're interested, we can also send you the PDF online. And so we have, I don't know, maybe we can, if you see, I'm not going through the images, but I think after that, if we go faster a little bit, this is the waist loom. That in Mexico we continue to do the waist loom, that it's a loom that it's attached to the back, and then you just need a tree or a house or something, and so it's like very mobile, so you can take it to the cities or to your friends, and you can brocade actually, and then that's Doña Otilia that is explaining us all the process. And can we go to the other? Yes, well, this is and at the end of the day, this is like an open book, because they read and they know if she's married, where she is from, exactly from which community, and many things. And this is a very nice dress that they do these 2 lines under, and then they turn it, and they start like the other side, because it's like this life circle that it never ends. And it's you have, these are called worms, and they develop into a butterfly. And the face of the women has sun rays because it has like the embellishment of the face. And all of the worms are different. So this whipil takes 2 years, 2.5 years to be finished. So you will see that they have birds, soldiers, ladies, and each kemit has a different worms. So that's why in Mexico they didn't cut, they didn't cut the fabrics, because it's not because they didn't have scissors. It's because it's an open book. I mean, if you just cut that book, then you
cut
will,
your books.
Exactly, you just don't cut them.
So there is a question here about the Mexican fashion scene. And before you go into that, I'm just going to say that it's so interesting to see how Mexicans are so proud to be Mexican. I mean, it's really a country that it's very grounded in its own roots. Mm-hmm. But I want your view on that related to fashion, because I mean, one sees it a lot in terms of food, Mexican
Yes.
food, and
art.
art. Yeah, but let's talk about fashion and Mexico.
Fashion, to be a fashion designer around the world is difficult, but I think to be a fashion designer in Mexico is even more difficult because our neighbors are the States. And I've always been like very intrigued of what is going on with Mexican fashion if we have so many wonderful designers. And I believe it's because the industry, we used to be the ones that made, we fabricated the designers from the States. I mean, Donna Karan is made there, Calvin
The
Klein.
maquilas are
the
there.
Maquilas, yes.
Were there, no more.
Well, they steal some. No, they still. But that was the problem because the Mexican industry didn't need to to develop like local designers because they were doing them for the Americans, And suddenly the Chinese came and they took away that market, and they are coming and see what we are doing. But it's difficult because, first of all, it's like what we do, we work with artisans that the time of a craft to be made, it's the least, so it's not compatible with the fast fashion, and that's like per se, it's the innovation all the time. And now, if you know Zara and H&M, they have new stuff every week. How can you compete with that if you're working with the communities that it takes you a week, but to get there, So it's very difficult. And once you're there, it takes you a year or a year and a half to produce something new, and that we understand each other, and that we have like a good collaboration. So how are you going to change that every 6 months? You can do it, and we do it. And it's how the designers do it, because you change little things, and then you make little things, and people think, oh, this is super new, and it's not that new,
Well, it's new, the fact that you're putting it in a new arena.
Yes.
So you have a fashion house, and then you have the atelier that
Yes.
you work, the mobile atelier with
Yes.
the communities.
Yes.
How do the two work together?
Well, that's an interesting question because we're not that many working, but when we go to the communities, for me it's very important that we actually go to the communities, because some designers bring the communities to the city, and for me it has to be the other way around, because then is when you discover what they have. I mean, and also that's the point of what we do, that the ladies can stay in the communities with their families and they don't have to leave the city because they obviously are like trying to look for better opportunities. So we try to go to the communities and stay there and teach there and learn and do everything there. But so what we also do, and I think it's very important to say it, is I'm a designer, and at the beginning you do everything. You are the one that make the design, you're the one that do the sewing and the commercial, and I think that is one of the problems that we keep doing in Mexico. We should start like dividing the creative process and the production process and commercial process, and everyone should be doing what they know what to do and what they enjoy. Because otherwise, if you're bad in one of those things, and then everything goes wrong. And that's why they just,
So
not
this
working.
is your latest book. This is actually, this is my first time seeing the book.
This is yours.
Oh, this is my, thank you so much. So it's called The Barefoot Designer. So who is this for? Why did you
Well,
write this book?
It's in honor to Johan van Lengen, that he wrote a book about vernacular architecture, and also, well, the Chinese doctors in the beginning of the century, they had like these brigades that were called the barefoot doctors that use traditional medicine, and that's what we do. We go and we use the traditional methods, and then we just do new designs. And this is a trip bitácora. How do you say bitácora?
Like a diary?
Like a diary of what has worked for us and what hasn't. And
To answer the question, what does a day in the life of Carla Fernández look like?
yes,
Go to the book.
exactly. Yes, it's everything there. I mean, sometimes the first, you go to a community and then you get stuck there because of fog. I know that happened to people that come from London not long time ago, like 3 days ago, but here is like you don't have communication, you don't have anything, and then you just have to bring sometimes 3 pair of shoes. You have to bring food to the women. How are you going to pay the women? Or how we have solved that, at least what is working for us and what is working for them.
Tell them about that. How is the collaboration in terms of economic terms?
Well, the major problem that is what women were leaving the houses to go and work in, for changing their skills and to go washing dishes or cleaning houses in the cities. So we went and see where the women were going and see, okay, so how much are you winning? No, let us know. So that's why we are that's our goal, so they can have enough money and enough garments that they can embroider or do in the month, so they don't have to leave their houses and exchange their work.
How are you involving the new generations?
That has been interesting because actually we work with mostly the communities that we work with. They call us. We don't call them. That brings us a lot of freedom, and that changes things because. And sometimes the older generation calls us and tells us like, oh, Carla or Taller Flora, the younger women don't want to use wraparound skirts made in waist loom because they're using denim. So we go to the community, I say like, and then we see that we can make denim in waist loom, and they can actually, the girls can do the denim. I mean, this is one example of many. But
so they're not only making for the Western consumer, they're also making for themselves.
Yes.
Creating a local industry, local for local. I think that's another great innovation that you're doing.
Yes, when we go, and the first thing that we teach them is how to do clothing for the kids, because the kids are losing their traditional costume. And suppose in Chiapas it's very cold, very, very cold, and the kids are always sick because they only use t-shirts. So we go there and we teach how this square root it's used in north, center, and south of Mexico, and they get it very easily. So we start measuring the kids with threads, and then we just go and each of the women, their project is for a week to do the coat for a kid using their wool and their things and their local, what they use, so the kids are warm at least. So, and they don't have to spend maybe on clothing for the kids. And then that same coat, we have sold it in France and we have sold it in Mexico City. So it gets...
So I don't know if you noticed the beautiful shoes yesterday. Can we talk about that?
Yes.
The guaraches.
Yes, the guaraches.
So what are the guaraches and how did you were inspired by Dutch clocks with this?
I wanted to do something that had to do with Holland for this catwalk, and at the end of the day, the guaraches were inspired by the...
The guaraches are the leather woven...
Yes. They're all made by hand in Michoacán, and then ensemble in León, that is another state. And I thought it was nice, and I was not worried about the models because I thought that when they were kids, for sure, they used Dutch clocks. So
They were actually fine.
Yes, they were fine.
Yeah.
Yes. They told me that it was much better than high heels, and I also believe that they are much better than high heels.
Can we talk about the molinillo and how you are fusing traditional cuisine elements into accessories? I think there is one
Yes.
tango there.
Let me...
Because this is another aspect.
Oh, here are
how,
the shoes. Yes.
how she's merging different disciplines in the language of fashion.
Yes. I don't know if you have seen chocolate stirrers that we use in Spain and in Mexico.
For hot chocolate.
For hot chocolate, there is like a stick with many rings, and then you just rub it, and then the chocolate dissolves, and then you drink it. We have a beautiful video that you can go like, and you can see it. And so something that happens also with the Mexican crafts is that, for example, the place that they do the molinillos, it's like 1,500 families are doing the same piece. So in Mexico, we all have like maybe 3 molinillos already. So it's like, what are we going to do? Because we already have 1, 2, 3, and we don't need more, you know? So I asked, and I said to one of my teachers, it's like, Marta Turok, where can I find a molinillo maker? And he said, no, you have to go this, where? So finally I went to Don Juan, and I told Don Juan, how's the business going? And he says like, well, you know, it's not going well, you know, because the molinillos, no one is buying them, and we were exporting to Spain, but now we cannot because of the crisis in Spain, whatever. And I said, why don't we do bracelets? And he was like, okay, no. And we started doing these bracelets, that the only thing that we did is like, if you see a molinillo, you're going to understand, because we had, I mean, I'll pass around the book as well, but we made the rings of the molinillo bigger, and that's it. And then
that's not it.
Well, that's... but it's the idea.
You also did color innovations.
Yes, we did color innovations, and we've been like playing a lot. But at the end of the day, we made a whole collection that comes from the molinillos, and also has to do with, it's like, for example, and then it went, like this is rebozo that is made in the south of Mexico, in el estado de Mexico, and this is woven in otomis, and this is like if a molinillo would go as a seal on top of it, and then indigenous women embroidered it, and then you have this also like the wood part, and then the wooden shoes and the wooden glasses. And
those are little molinillos.
Those are little molinillos, yes, and they're selling very well. And we also made like color innovation, because the black of this is burnt. It's not color, so it's bent. It's burned. And
what other element of Mexican cuisine have you brought into your work?
Well, no, I think that's it. Well, we work with plants. It's like, for example, the coat. It's when you see how it's made, they sink it into, this is mud.
You mean this one here?
That one there. That is
From
a beautiful,
Chiapas.
from Chiapas, from San Juan Chamula. That is also waist loom woven, and they dye it in mud. They sink it like in this beautiful like kitchen that has all these herbs, and you see the lady like, you know, for 3 weeks like taking care of it. So that has also to do with cooking, you know, because, and the smell. The ladies, when they wove, I actually, my first try to export to the States long time ago, they were stuck in costumes because of the smell of the kitchen, of the wooden smell. I was like, but that's beautiful, you know.
Well, think about a perfume. That would be really
Yes,
nice.
we're doing, actually, we're doing
You're
a perfume. Yes. Yes.
Wow, okay.
Yes, with a chef, with a contramar chef, El Numero Toro.
Yeah.
So
we need to talk about this.
Yes. Yes. And so when you get when you get them, you smell that they were made in the kitchen, you know, and it's a beautiful smell for me. Obviously, I understand that the boutiques don't want that smell.
How is this wool from Chiapas eco, or we're giving labels to things that are very old. We're saying sustainable, eco. which sometimes like happens by default. But can you
Yes.
talk about the process of this wool?
Yes, the process of that wool is very interesting because, first of all, in San Juan Chamula, the sheep, did I say it well? The sheep are like the most cared pets. They don't eat the meat of the lamb and the sheep in exchange of the wool. So for me, it's beautiful because also when you see that, it's like a fair, you know, it has like, I mean, my LA clients love it, and I love that the LA clients love it because they love fur, like real fur, and then they're like taking this. And also, I mean, it's all handmade, and then they sink it into the mud, like for 3 weeks, so the black never fades away. When you work with fabrics that are black, then you will see that the black has this thing with the sunlight that always gets opaque, and this always shines like that. And when you put it on weather that is humid, then it's like an animal, no? You can feel the...
So we're going to have a lot more opportunities to talk to Carla. I am now going to introduce to you...
Do I stay here?
I don't know... you can stay there, I guess. Robaard. Did I say it properly? Robaard? Yes? It's a problem?
Yoga.
Oh, yeah, joke is the problem. Yoke. Yeah. Is an artist and researcher and teaches theory at the Gerrit Rivert Academy in Amsterdam. In her practice, she operates on the interface of social, geographical research, cartography, and photography, and connects this with philosophy and textile theory. Her work is an ongoing investigation into these fields and domains. Recent exhibitions include Get Real, Real Self, at the Museum of Modern Art in Arnhem, Model and the Other in Belgium, Endless Shirt in Austria, Stand In at the Dutch Pavilion. She lives and works in Amsterdam. She originally was trained in fashion. She investigates the configuration of groups of people, for example, networks of friends, companies, and neighbors. She directs individuals in certain positions and patterns in relation to one another, which are then photographed and use clothing to illustrate where the connection lie and how they're constantly shifting. Her work is based on a huge collection of images and texts relating to people's clothing behavior. She does not categorize them as fashion, but wants to find out how clothing works. Her archive can be seen as a cartographic record of everyday clothing. She moves simultaneously through the various zones of visual art, photography, video, and fashion. Moving through art, photography, and video and fashion, her beautifully designed book, folders, suits, pockets, files, includes text by Gilles Deleuze, Roland Barthes, Robert Berson, Jorin Seidel, and the artist herself. Welcome. Thank you very much.
That's the mouth. Well, hello. I'm very delighted to talk about your work, Carla, and I will try in a very short time to create a context for the notions of social design and social fabric. I'm very interested in the ideas behind social fabric and social design, but I'm also very interested in the misunderstandings about this word. And I'm also interested in how these words and meanings shifts. So I would like to start a very small overview. And first I would like to start with a notion from fabric in the beginning of the 80s. Well, this is the opposite of a social fabric. It's a winning fabric, and it appears to be a new fabric for Cerruti, an Italian designer company, and they invented a fabric which had a kind of elasticity tea. And this new identity of this fabric was highly interested, but they needed a kind of corporate idea connected to it. They said, well, this elastic fabric is maybe like a very flexible fabric. We join it to the idea of a soccer player, a famous soccer player, so human characteristics. And this soccer player was a very good dribbler, so the material was called dribbling. Aha, so we have a human character connected to fabric. Still a winning fabric in the very haute couture of Italian fashion. Okay. No, now it's going too quick. Yes. When I make a very quick step from the 80s to the 90s, then in the 90s, beginning 2000, there emerges the word social fabric, already trying to describe and explain practices who try to find out other practices, sustainable clothing. But this social fabric is positioned in a lot of circumstances, and the question is, how social are the circumstances? So it's a very much beloved word, social. To go back maybe to this double meaning of fabric and social, I would like to talk about this simple piece of fabric. And I want to attach it to the idea of Plato, who invented the story of the statesman. And the statesman is a very strange dialogue between Plato himself and Socrates, and a young Socrates. And he tries to explain how a state has to be organized. And he shows a very technical metaphor, and that is weaving, which he introduces as maybe not so interesting for these men, but he needs the comparison of the straight and the very clear practice of weaving, the warp and the weft. It's a very clear concept. And he says the warp is constructed by strong people, and the weft is the one of the people who follow. And he says the statesmen have to organize a perfect weave by combining a heterogeneous group of people who form this fabric. Well, at the end of this comparison for this ideal state, he presumes that this is a boring metaphor. Again, we have this idea, it's just a vernacular female activity. But the story is very precise and interesting, I think. Okay, so fabric is not only a piece of material, but there's embedded meaning in it. And it moves between language, sociology, and is sometimes diverted to other domains. I liked very much this drawing in a Dutch newspaper in 2012, I think, 13 even. And it shows the unraveling of the euro knitting work. That's what the article says. They say the European financial government is trying to really unravel this construction, because they can't sustain it and they have to deal in another way with it. Here we found a nice problem. The French say that this is détricoté, that means really unknitting. But if you unknit a sweater, you still have the material and your mother knits another. So I said, they're not recycling the financial system. So there's a paradox between the language projection and the real technical material activity. That's an interesting one. Nowadays, we talk a lot about social fabric, and fabric as an idea of how the world is functioning fabric of our lives in a fashion article in Financial Times, fabric of society, in a double meaning, because this is a protest in Paris, women protesting against their taboo on wearing the burqa, but I'll talk with you later about it. Yeah, Carla, I put you in a nice combination of people. There's the first social gathering, and I had a lot of fun making it, because it's Plato, this quintillion, who's talking about the spider web and the real essence of textile as being text, and the spider web textile. There's Jane Jacobs, totally above, who opened up this idea of social fabric in architecture and urban development, really saying, okay, how do you keep the social fabric of society alive? In the middle is a very important philosopher at the moment, Bruno Latour, and he says, well, we have to rethink the idea of the social, because the old idea of social is almost talking about unifying groups, and we have to talk about small encounters and small actions. I also want the creepy image of these three women, three Norns, goddesses in the opera of Wagner, who are working on the tree of life, creating the cloth of. And in Wagner, they say, we cannot weave anymore. The wisdom of the world is disappearing, and this weaving with the world tree is breaking down, and it's a drama in this Rotterdam room, the Dusk of the Gods. Left is very important artist, Richard Tuttle, who will do a large exhibition in the Tate Gallery, I think in 2014. I can't say no more about it. And left, there's something I like to connect to you, and that is Christopher Alexander, who had this beautiful book, Pattern Language, and you also said that in architecture there has been more written text about this idea of what is an archive, how can you make an archive alive, huh? Like Foucault is saying, an archive is audiovisual. You have to open it up, put a new light on it, and you have to really interact with it. So, and of course Gilles Deleuze, who used weaving as almost introducing two concepts of weaving as a closed system, which can only become bigger with the warp, but not with the weft, because the loom is there, and the smooth space of felt, which can endlessly expand. Well, the ever-shrinking meaning of social, I think that's a beautiful text of Latour, and he says, if social starts with the idea, okay, I follow someone, and then you start to negotiate with people. That is how the process really goes. And then you install something, a third factor. You have I would call it a reciprocal practice. So that is really a kind of movement, and that's also a movement which is changing. The thing is that not everything is still social in that sense, because if it's not something you mediate and interact, then it's the old social, I would say. And in your practice, I think it's so vital. I like the surfaces of fashion photography, because it's a perfect symbol of how we look at who's in the back and who's in the front. With whom do we work together, or do we use people for background decoration? This is images from Nova in 1967. Toscani in Club Med in the 70s. And a very ironic, sarcastic, I would say, ad of Diesel in the 90s. Wow. How to deal with the other. fashion has been fond of being the other and looking at the other, but then leaving again. So not to establish alliances with people. So there has been a long adaptation system of being influenced by people, but then being influenced in a very short period. And then you're out. I have to read this beautiful text. The mothers, they are called les mamans toutes égales. All the mothers, all equal, and they protest against the law of the burqa. And in this text they say the veil for your eyes is maybe much more dangerous than the veil on our hair. Well, in French it's much nicer. And but it's great that they use the flag as the next veil. Well, is this the garment you are wearing, Carla?
Well, this,
not
actually, that one is that one. We can play a lot with our garments, so you can put the poncho in the little poncho.
So these are two garments.
This and that one as well.
That's one.
No, that's two garments as well. Yes. Yes, so you can take the little poncho and use it as that.
Well, what I appreciate in your work is that suddenly, when reading about your practices, you watch in another way to an image which emerges. And I also thought, nowadays, if you talk about sustainable clothes, more and more, you're not only looking at the form or the aesthetics of a garment, but you immediately start touching it. You want to know how it is. You want to know if the fur is made by wool or what the process is. There's almost a forensic practice, I would say. It's the research to one's surface. And I think that's really interesting. Yeah, this is already spoken about. I found this old image in the National Geographic. A good weaver teaches others. And I liked very much that you were saying, well, in order to teach, I have to learn first. But you do the both at the same time, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, you have to do both, but you have to know when is the right time to start like creating. If you haven't learned enough, then you have to wait.
But how do you practically deal with that? You have to learn to work with people. You have to know how they work. You have to follow their practicalities.
Yes.
They have to learn it to you.
No. What we do is, suppose that I go to the Don Juan that he makes the molinillos, and I just sit down and I understand the practice, so what he does. As I sit and I see how he makes it,
yeah.
And then I understand what we can do and what we can't, because we have like years of talking back and forward.
Yeah.
And after that, it's like when you understand the technique, then you see what new things we can do together. It's the same. So I would never ask Don Juan to make something that is not related of what he likes to do, because sometimes you go to a weaver and tell her to embroider, or you go to an embroideress and tell her to sew. So, I mean, at the end, it's not. After a while that you've been like working with communities, you understand faster what they're doing and the reach of what we can do at that community, maybe.
Yeah, yeah. I found two interesting words, fascinating words in your book. I hope you remember, and it was saying that you had a kind of organic teaching theory whose basis is above all visual. It's a hybrid between mimicry and origami. Well, it's kind of mysterious.
Yes. Well,
How could you describe that?
no, it's because when I go to the communities in Mexico, we have a totally different way of living. We are completely different. So, I mean, I have much more in common with you that live across, the continent and the Atlantic, and when you have been there. I mean, could be in Mongolia or in Mexico, and I mean, we share things that we eat maybe the same chips, but that's it. So if you go there and you are working with someone that doesn't speak Spanish, and doesn't measures with, I was taught in my school to measure with a ruler. So I went there with a ruler, and then you start like figuring out that that's not the way it has to be done. So we start like actually, obviously sometimes we have a translator, but at the end of the day, the translator is like, I don't know, somewhere else, and you are like with 15 people, and you have to, okay, here's the thread, and here's how you know, and you start like playing with that, and that's actually about what the book is about, of how we work on that mimicry of, and they also tell me, it's like if they don't speak my language and I don't speak theirs, so we have to actually understand the way of working, that it's what they do. And that's why it's so simple, because they see the images and immediately they understand. So they understand how to do a sweater, or they understand how to do this because they have done it for many thousand years. And then they understand the origami because that's the way that they pleat their skirts every day, and they will understand if they fold maybe in little pleats or big pleats, and then you just open. And it's very easy. What we do really... It's very simple. Yes, and we also do it with
Not
kids.
sure about that. But
Yeah, but that is about generating.
Yes.
Generating form and knowing the story about it.
Yes, yes.
Can I have it on?
Yes, please.
Okay.
actually,
Thank you very much.
speaking on fluidity, we're moving into the questions. So maybe you can move this way.
I'm done.
Oh, you're done. Oh, perfect. Okay, so now a fashion show, or what's going on now?
And this actually, it's a very simple piece in a way, but a very complex in another one. This is an artisan that weaves it in. It's a weaver, and from Tlaxcala, that is like 3 hours away from Mexico City. And this is the wool that Emiliano Zapata and Pancho Villa used to wear like in 100 years ago. And he is the only artisan that is doing this kind of weaving that is called herchas, and in Mexico it's called jergas, and now it's disappearing. And then you can put your hands also here, or take it here's like the back. I mean, you have to, yes, you can do it. I mean, it's a simple garment, but I think it depends on how you use it. It can be a poncho, or you can make it elegant, or you can, that's part of what we do. That it can be casual or elegant. It depends on the people that wears it, and it can be very playful.
Thank you.
Oh, I have to.
No, please. Yes.
So it is a pleasure for me to introduce Marieke Eyskoot, and she is the innovator behind ethical fashion in the Netherlands. She has a program called Talking Dress and a free app where you can actually ask the questions, where can I buy ethical fashion? What are the criteria, and how do I get about that? She also has created a trade show within the bigger scene of trade shows that happens seasonally, and that's actually merging the bigger industry with the industry of ethical fashion. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much, and also thanks, of course, to the Balie and the Prince Claus Fund for having me, and for all of you to be here. That's amazing. And to be sitting next to you.
No, thank you.
For those of you who are from the Netherlands and would like to know how my name really sounds, sorry. It's Marieke Eyskoot. Nice to meet you. Don't worry about it. It sounds gorgeous. At least I can say Marcella. Let's just leave it there. Well, here we are. Shall I ask some questions? Would that be okay? Or would you love to start off? Oh, the floor is mine. Wow. Okay. Well,
Or you can also tell us about sustainable fashion here in Holland.
would you like to know about that?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Well, very quickly, I think sustainable fashion in the Netherlands is definitely coming up and is definitely, in terms of, for instance, the brands that we have here and the fact that we do have a trade show is on the forefront in Europe, for sure. The trade show that you were referring to is called Mint. It's part of Modefabriek, if you maybe know it, the bigger trade show that we have here in the Benelux. And the upcoming edition is January 26, 27, if you'd like to attend. And that's where I really wanted to make sure that the amazing ethical fashion brands that we have here in the Netherlands, but of course also all over the world, are presented to the buyers. Because I've been working in ethical fashion for over 10 years. And the questions I indeed always got from everyone, whether I went to a party or to the sports club or in a venue like this, was always, where can I buy it? What can I do myself? And what do I need to look out for? So I started my bureau talking dress to try and answer those questions for everyone. So that's where Mint came from, which is a trade show to make sure that buyers from stores really see those amazing brands and they end up in the store, so you guys can actually go out and buy them. And that's also what that app is for. It's called Talking Dress as well. It's free if you got an Android or an iPhone.
It's in English?
It's basically brands and stores and everything, so you can just browse through it and see both based on where you are right now or whether you are interested in either a brand or a store or anything like that. You can just browse through it and see what's available. So that actually came from my book, which is called Talking Dress. But I think it's much more interesting to talk about Carla, actually. So, yeah, I mean, we can talk about these things. I live here, so we can come together at some other points and just talk about it. We could organise that, right? Just sit. Yeah, okay. I was really, really honoured to be able to sort of come here and speak to you because I hadn't heard of you. I have to admit this. I didn't know Carla before, I think, a month ago or a month and a half when I was invited. I was like, who is this amazing person? So that was really amazing. And I was wondering, going through your curriculum, if you like, you're very much, of course, sort of attached to the history of fashion in that sense. But I was wondering where you see the future of fashion sort of going, because I think it feels like those two are quite attached for you, both sort of together.
Actually, I have to say that Prince Claus solved that problem because they use this phrase that say the future is handmade, and it's the perfect phrase. I mean, I have to say that for me, I see the future, at least in fashion and in my country, that is handmade. Is that a too short answer?
No, I love short answers. That's really good. That keeps us going. Yeah, that's good. I think I was really wondering if there's in your work, which is quite, that sounds almost small, but locally based in that sense, that it's a very Mexican sort of based project. I was wondering if there were any things that you feel that you've either experienced or learned that could be applicable to like other cultures or other countries, even maybe such as the Netherlands?
Yes, I'm sorry I didn't answer you. You asked me also that in the beginning, and yes.
I thought I'd just ask it again.
No, the thing is that suppose like the aprons in Holland, they come from the same basic use, you know, that you have a fabric and how you pleat it and how you just sew a stitch or sew another long strap, and then you make a beautiful skirt or a beautiful apron. And you have that everywhere, in every culture, because I think it's primitive, and that's the way we used to do clothing in the beginning of the humans and you know, of time. So I'm also very interested in how that applies to other cultures. And if you go to my personal books and library, and you will see that I have beautiful books of Swedish costumes that they are like very modern, and you have to do everything that moves in a bike now and everything. No, so it does. If it's not
that's
wearable,
a very Dutch thing to say.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it also happens here because
yes.
yes, right. If you cannot go on a bike, then you won't buy it.
No, definitely.
Yes.
Are you from here?
No.
Oh, it sounds like it's very.
Yes,
very
but
Dutch.
we do actually things. It's like I have problems with my ponchos with people that bike a lot, so we make the short poncho, so you can get like the short poncho, and then you can bike freely. Yes, exactly. Yes, but no, I'm very interested in traditional clothing, and obviously I love fashion. I mean, I love Rick Owens, and I mean, you name it. I mean, Rico, I have like a special now crush on him, but
I think that's for everyone probably the start of fashion and of clothes. I mean, if you don't love them, you don't buy them.
Exactly.
For most people, that's also one of the questions they will ask if you're working in sustainable fashion. Some people still have like 3 worries, I think, with that either it's horrible or very boring, that it's very expensive, and that it's nowhere to be found. And I think those 3 things are really outdated by now, and I think it's up to us to sort of try and convince people and also seduce people to see that it opens lots of amazing new doors and new ways of looking at fashion and how to wear fashion and what it actually means to you. I mean, how happy are we at this moment, all of us, that there actually is something that's called clothes and fashion? It would be very different, this whole conversation, if we didn't have any clothes on at this moment. Yeah, I think we just sometimes tend to overlook the whole fact that we can't live without clothes and without fashion at all. So
especially if it's cold.
Especially if it's cold, but also especially in these kinds of, I think, for me, when I'm sort of doing public speaking, I'm like, thank God for clothes. That's just so weird. But going back to sort of the whole sustainable fashion part of your whole project, I think that's, for me, a fascinating part of it, that it's not just a cultural and historical, but also a sustainable practice. Do you have an idea? Because for me, it's quite important to, as you said already, to combine both ethical fashion and the masses, that we don't continue or even start making things that are only for a smaller group, but that can, in the long run, sort of really overturn the whole world of fashion, and that we don't have a choice in the end anymore. I was wondering if you have an idea through your practices and through your experiences how we can sort of make sure that we bridge that gap to a much bigger audience, and also make sure that we sort of seduce them in a way to see the beauty of it and why it's much more interesting and important to wear that.
Well, we have 2 lines. One that is the one that is handmade, and actually you can go to the community and you will see that the artisan in his workshop or the lady in the communities are doing either waist loom or embroidery or dyeing processes. And then I've always thought that I was unfair that the artisans, they don't get paid for ideas. I mean, I don't understand why. I think that it's there's like these great ideas that someone had once, and they say like, keep it like that, because then it will make us richer and will make some people poorer, and they will work for us like for a lot of time. And because as crafts are so slowly made, no one pays for that. I mean, unless you really work for Dior, and then you work for the Chambre Syndicale de la Mode, and then we don't have that in the world. I mean, you can go to India and you will see that they have the same problem. You can go to Japan and you can go to many places, and people that do these very elaborated crafts, they don't get paid as they should. So I've been thinking and asking why we don't pay them for the ideas. If someone comes and takes them and they make thousands of T-shirts, because we should start like making thousands of T-shirts with the communities, the groups that we work with. So we do that. Now maybe really we can afford to live as artisans, and we can combine. It's very important to maintain the tradition. I completely agree, but it's also important that you can maintain the tradition with a certain level that you can send your kids to school and they can be proud and they want to also continues the work because it's a family business and it's going well, etc. So I think also that if you work with an artist, and you have to find your ways that they get paid enough to live and enjoy their lives as, well, and also the people that work in the cities, because we have to produce more, and sometimes they come and they say, like, oh, Carla, yes, we won 1,500 rebosos in 2 months. It's like, no, we only can do 300, and 300 has been like, and we're very proud that we can make 300, So it's like, okay, we only give you 300, but then we have like this thing that we can give you more, or it's like we made 1.5 million uniforms for the kids of all the schools, public schools in Oaxaca. And
1.5 million.
1.5 million, and it's only one state. And I was very proud because they were like these kids that really, no one takes care, like obviously their mothers and their parents and their families, but it's a very poor state. And then they came and they decided that I had the luck to make these uniforms. And I went to these sustainable fabrics, fábricas, ¿cómo se dice? Factories, that they work only with single mothers. So they will keep doing this for 6 years. That's like the government pays for the uniforms. That's new for the government because they used to sell it. And I ask for the quality of the Donna Karan jeans of export. So I was like, I want that quality. And then we made a brocade on the jeans. So they're jeans. They're made of the best cotton, Mexican cotton. The kids, because they used to use polyester, and it's very difficult because in the communities, really, you can burn yourself. They have fire kitchens, and there's a lot of accidents. Then you sweat a lot. It's not good. The women, they go and wash it on the rivers, so pollution on the rivers. The mothers have to walk a lot to go to rivers and wash. So it's like just plain jeans, don't wash them for a week. So that was like the instruction. Don't worry, you don't have to wash them. Just take them for at least 4 days. It's okay, they're going to be fine, And so the mothers and parents have more, they can spend more time with the kids, and then it's cotton, and it's made in Mexico by women. We can produce 1.5 million, give work to single mothers. I mean, we can do it. I mean, if you want, you just can do it.
Well, I'd like to.
Yes, we can do the uniforms for the Dutch kids.
Yeah. They don't wear uniforms, so we could make them wear uniforms then.
Yes.
So for you, it's very important that the people you work with get paid and get paid properly.
Yes.
Of course, yes. So when you get a call from a community, for instance, Carla, could you please come over and work with us?
Yes.
Who pays you, actually?
Well, the community calls, they have, in Mexico, there are like a lot of government supports and also NGOs. So it's usually someone in between that pays for the workshop. They don't pay well, but we don't mind because we know that that's what we do. And sometimes we just exchange. So it's like we are working with 80 artisans and they are not paying us, but I'm doing this change. So we're working with 150 women that they are like the leaders of their community. So then they reach like 1,300 other women. And we are making exchanges. So I told them, it's like, oh, can I do work with them for a particular line that obviously we paid every single thing. So they do this and it's like 3 months that it didn't work. We have to pay for all the products that they do, no? But in exchange, I make a line for them free so that they can sell it to artisans and around the world. And then I can do my line. So you always find your way. So this is like one example, but we have like
bartering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Sí,
Yeah.
¿Cómo se dice? Intercambio, trueque. Exacto. Trueque.
Do you have a favorite piece of garment? And what's the story behind that?
You mean one?
Yes, I mean one.
You mean right here, right now?
Yes.
No, just in general. Don't just pick from this. I was just wondering, I'm sure there's loads, but could you
But like
tell
a
me a
silhouette,
story
like,
of what was something that's very particular, special to you?
Well, I have many, but I have to say that always loved chamula. That is like the
fur.
The fur. Okay. I mean, I love it because it's like between a monkey, a fur, and then I love the smell of it. I love that the shininess. I don't know. I have to say that I really love to play with it. And when you cut it, it's nice because sometimes you cut fabrics. That I have to say that we cut fabrics. And then they just open, and it's very difficult. What you were saying, Yoka, no? That then you have this material that is not working, and but this one you have to open the hair, you have to comb it, so it's like between your hair, and then you see the weaving, and then you see like things that are going inside because it's so you actually see like hairs of the women woven. So you just like start like seeing all these things, and yes, it has like its own life.
So these clothes aren't for sale yet in the Netherlands?
No, we would love to sell in the Netherlands.
So I have a trade show.
Yes.
So who knows?
Yes, we would love to be part of it.
Let's talk about that.
Yes.
So maybe if you come to Mint, you might see Carla. That would be amazing.
Yes.
That's great. On that note, we'll open the floor to questions from the audience.
Do you want me to stay here or shall I?
You
Okay.
can stay, yeah. Would you like to come?
Yoka, I think she's talking to you.
If you think of this idea that you look at the garment and you're not only focusing on aesthetics and the idea of fashion, you need a story, the story of the social and the activities and the reciprocity of the interactions. I always think it's such a problem that you cannot read anything in a garment.
That you cannot?
You cannot read anything except washing
Okay.
instructions, and that's it. So I think the medialization is tough in this case. What do you think about it? How can you make clear how these interactions take place?
So how you tell the story, you mean?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I am very happy that we had the Prince Claus Award because we are going to use the money to let people know, because we have too many things to do. So we do so many things, and we have done the books, but sometimes people, they're interested in the garment, they cannot buy the book, or they maybe, so it's very, so we have to. And Marcella is an expert on that, and she's helping us with that, because we need to tell the story, but in the garment. I understand what you say. It's like how, and for me it's very difficult because when you go to our stores, I have to tell the story in a very particular way, that it has to be very, I don't know if it's cool, so it has to be very fresh and cool, so everyone that comes sees like the magnificence of how this is made, and not that, oh my God, the poor lady that doesn't has a floor or something, that in Mexico, well, I mean, I've been sleeping there, and you can sleep very well, and we have to understand that there are many worlds, and we work with very happy women, but how can we translate that? I don't have to be there because now the seller has to be there and explains, or I have to be there and explain, and so we're thinking in many things that maybe you can have, like in the label, a YouTube line. So if you're interested in the garment, so at first you have to be interested in the shape of it, because it's something that you say that people think that sustainable fashion is horrible. So if you put sustainable, it's like, oh no, I'm not going to get inside because it's going to be too hippie and too horrible and too expensive and not cool at all. No, so that comes after. I think that you have to go to the store or where we are retailing the things, and you have to fall in love, and then if you're curious enough and to make that with branding, then you will say it's like, oh, if you want to know more about your garment, go to this website. We're working on that.
Yeah, with a QR code, you can go directly to the community and even meet the weaver. So yeah, and not only that, but then the weaver can also get access to the final customer of the garment. So it's actually a both-way equation.
There's a Dutch brand as well who works with this called Studio Yux. Some of you might know it, that they have a factory in Nepal and they sew the number in the garment, and then on the website you can meet the specific person who's sort of worked on that garment. You can see, well, number 8 actually called.
So you need a
such
code
and such.
or an instruction.
Of course,
Yes,
yeah. Otherwise you won't know.
I just put for this occasion my Marcella T-shirt. A lot of people know it. It was a great opportunity to have a text on the AIDS campaign in the T-shirt. It's unreadable from afar, but I thought it's a nice idea. Yeah. I also thought that forensic, if it's forensic material, forensic comes from forum, so a forum is there to discuss.
Actually, it was funny that you say that, because I have a friend that he's helping me with a campaign that we're doing, and he says, like, Carla, it has to be like very in a forense, in a makeup forense. And I was like, oh, I don't know. Because he thinks that things should be like that and should be very plain, and also to understand what is going on and to go in detail and see what is inside. That's what you meant.
And there's a forum with a whole audience here as well, of course, so if they have any questions.
Feel free to start with the questions. She has a microphone here.
I'm Femke van Gemert. I'm a textile designer myself, and I'm a organizer of a conference called What Design Can Do. We had Carla in May here in Amsterdam, so I'm partly proud that she won the prize, by the way. But my question is, in the beginning, when you entered to the communities, how did it start? Did they look at you as this rich lady coming from the cities, telling them this is going to be your future? How did it start? Because I can imagine by now you have a name and they welcome you and they call you. But how did you enter the right way?
Well, it's I mentioned that usually they come and they ask for help. So it's a very different situation when they ask, well, not for help, but for the workshops. And really, I see they don't speak Spanish, but they have a cell phone. So, like Carla, so Maria calls me, so I'm in Boston, and Maria is like, Carla, so she speaks like a little bit of Spanish. She's like, Carla, where's the work? I'm like, no, it's coming. So we call the office, and no, it's so, and they're like, at the end of the day, we're all like mothers, and we know that that we love what we do, and it's a business, and we understand now each other. So it's like when I'm not in the conference at time, it's like, no, I see, maybe Marija is like, Carla, where are you? Like, I'm going to be right there. No, and the same is like, so it's very easy. I mean, for me, it's even easier. I've been asked to teach in the universities in Mexico City, and that is difficult for me. So it depends on what you like, I think.
I'm Annette Bok. Do you make different lines, like a couture line and a pret-a-porter line, or is this what kind of line is this?
This is, I brought here, it's a mix, but this is a demi-couture, because we don't call it haute couture because it's forbidden by the French.
Intellectual property, right?
Exactly, intellectual property.
High fashion.
But this, for example, all this has handmade processes. And you will see that I'm using silk of some of the garments, because we don't have silk in Mexico. So we just don't have. And we have raw silk, and it's very difficult to work with it. And so sometimes we mix like industrial fabrics with the hand processes. I didn't bring the pret-a-porter here because it has like some patterns and that are the industrial. But we do season. Every season we have a new collection, and then we have designs all the time.
Hi. I was wondering, how permanent is your work relationship with the communities that you work with?
I have been working on that a lot because when you're in this field, you understand that it's not that you do one collection and then you just leave, because otherwise there's no point of doing that. Especially, I mean, in India, that it's all happens all the time, that you have a workshop and then you design a collection with that workshop and then you leave and then everything goes back to stress and not having work. So we have something that is called parallel collections. So if you go to our collections and stores, you will always find chamula, even if it's like 40 degrees. Then you will find like bags, and then we try to do things that are not for that season, but you can actually like work on that. So from accessories, or we send it to other countries, and we always working with the same. Or we do house. That's like now we're doing for a Maison Objet. They ask us for blankets made of chamula. So we find our way that with the groups that we work with, we stick with them. So it's like, for example, with Don Fermín that makes the rebosos, we've been working for 10 years, con el Señor Salvador 7, and with the chamulas, pues I've been falling in love with this group. We have two groups there that are huge, well, not huge, but they're like 20 women in one, and the other one goes and comes back. But and you keep doing things and doing, and they stick with us, and us with them.
Any other question from the audience? No? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
And of course, also a big thanks to Marcella with the beautiful last name.